Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So first of all, describe the Forward Party and who may be interested in this.
Well, it's all in the name, not left or right, but forward, which is where most people here in Pennsylvania and around the country want to go. The problem is that both political parties are right now subject to their bases who may or may not have views that actually line up with most Pennsylvanians or what most people want in their communities.
So what's your goal for 2024?
Well, our goal for 2024 is to make a difference in as many local races as possible, including right here in Pennsylvania. There's actually a summit this weekend, historic. The Forward Party of Pennsylvania is having a summit in Gettysburg. People will come together and say, look, what do we want to emphasize as we back local candidates, from everything in school board races all the way up?
So you're not looking to have a presidential candidate from the Forward Party in 2024. Do you think that you might eventually?
Yeah, so when you described me as Joe's opponent, I actually endorsed Joe in the general and campaigned for him right here in Pennsylvania. We're not looking at the national race at all. We're looking at where people actually live and where we can make the most difference.
So you're talking about local races. But local races, national races, if you take out the people from the center who you're appealing to, does that have the possibility, though, of just sort of giving more runway to people in the Democratic and Republican parties to get more extreme?
Well, if you imagine, let's say, because right now Pennsylvania state legislature is just about 50-50. By the way, so is the country. And so if you can imagine, let's say, a coalition of people in the middle, 10% or so, that could work with either side to actually solve problems and get things done, as opposed to blaming either side, that would be an enormous difference maker. And you don't need 51% of people to sign up for the Forward Party to make that happen right here in PA and in places around the country.
Why can't you do it within the existing party structure?
Well, if anyone who's been in party politics knows that you can want to do something, and then as soon as you get into the machine, then you're like, you might not want to do that because we've got all sorts of interest groups, all sorts of voting blocks that are going to be very, very angry at you if you decide to make that stance. And that's why problems just fester and don't get solved here in Pennsylvania and around the country, unfortunately. It was a U.S. senator who said this to me: an issue is worth more to us unaddressed now than addressed, because if I don't address it, I can get you mad, I can raise money, and if I do address it, I'm going to get beaten up. That's what we have to change.
So walk me through how this would work in Pennsylvania and in other states. You know, Pennsylvania is one of the states that you're really focusing on. I think about things like the Working Families Party, where they endorse candidates, and then they also have their own candidates who run under the Working Families Party slate. Are you looking at something like that?
Yeah, very similar. We're an independent political movement that wants to help candidates win, whether they have an R or a D or anything else.
But there would be some who would run under the Forward Party as their party?
Yeah, where that makes sense. The fact is, in a lot of the state, in a lot of the country, it would make more sense to run as either one of the major parties or as an independent. But I want people to really look at what happened in your mayoral race just now. The winning candidate got 70,000 votes in a city of 1.5 million. A Democratic member of Congress, Brendan Boyle, came out and said, look, guys, this system is not actually representative. How can you govern a city of 1.5 million if you had let's say less than 5% of the people voting for you? Then anytime you run into resistance, people are going to say, hey, I didn't vote for you. And that's going to be true for literally the vast majority of Philadelphians.
So is Philadelphia one of the places that you would look to have some influence? Ranked choice voting is something that has been talked about more over the past month or so with this huge field of candidates that we had for mayor.
Yeah, ranked choice voting would have ensured that whoever won actually had majority support and appeal. And it's not the candidate's fault. They're in a process that, you know, would have the winner get whatever it's going to be, 25, 30%. But then the other 70% of voters are like, hey, you know, maybe that wasn't my candidate. So ranked choice voting in nonpartisan primaries would be a dramatic improvement. It would save time, money, and make sure that the person who wins says, look, I got 50.1% of Philadelphians behind me.
Andrew Yang, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks. Great to be back.